Hey, the world's full of fantastic music. Each month, we explore an album of significance, its roots, how it makes us feel, and then banter about its influence and staying power. Join us on our journey as we dissect, discuss, and discover some of the world's greatest albums on The Sonic Collective.
Hello and welcome back to the Sonic Collective. My name is Darren Scott, and I am joined with the rest of our group. We've got Scott Gregory and Alan Dupuis here with me in Calgary, and across the pond in Bangkok, Thailand, we have Scott Coates. Those are our four members. So this round, we switched it up a little bit. If you listen to our last episode, you will learn that we are now going to do a round of having three albums we listen to, and then we have to figure out the connection between the three. And it could be literally anything. So I got to go first. If you want to learn more about that, go listen to that previous little episode. It'll explain it all. But you're here and you're listening to it now. So I got to go. So I picked three albums that have a connection, and we're going to go around quickly, and we're going to quickly give a review of each album, and then we're going to give a little score, and then we'll come back and see if anybody got the connection. Okay, the three albums were The Modern Lovers with Jonathan Richman, the self-titled album. I had Sonic Youth, Goo, and I had REM, The Reckoning, just Reckoning, not The Reckoning. It's probably a different album. Anyway, those are three albums I chose. So, all really good albums. Well, I thought so anyway. And with that, why don't I kick it over to Scott Gregory, and he'll give us his quick overview of the three albums, and then give him some scores.
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Darren. There's like 20 years difference between these albums, which I thought was really great. There's a lot of diversity, but apparently a common thread.
That was a throw you off.
I know, right? Roadrunner is a great track. I'd heard it before. I think that's the only one I had heard before. Everyone's heard of it, I think. Well, except for Johnny Rotten, who put out a shit cover of it. I listened to that thing. Oh my god. The album has a strong punk sensibility, and yet it's totally coherent, which threw me off because a lot of punk from that era, it just feels like a drunken binge into a microphone. Anyone with a guitar could do it. Not necessarily at the top of the elites, and I think that kind of puts Modern Lovers somewhere in that range. It just has that really strong punk sensibility, like She Cracked. I really liked it for that reason. It's got a very 70s punk sound to it. It's good stuff. You get to Astral Plane, and it sounds like The Doors meets Frank Zappa meets like a bluesy Violent Femmes, only Richmond's replaced Gordon Gano on lead.
I think
so.
You gotta listen to this, and I think you want to have a beer with that guy. Like, he's just a strange guy.
Oh my god, the stories that guy must have. But it's like if David Byrne had a punk band. I think it would sound like this, right? Which makes sense. And I'm threading some of these bands that you had mentioned, in your opening before through this, just flailing, trying to find the common thread between them. I still don't know if this is a punk album or a rock album, but I'm still not sure, but it's good. Jonathan Richman on leads. He's great, whichever one he's doing. Sonic Youth, Goo. I can't get enough of Resi layered guitars, man. Like, I don't know how I missed this in the 90s, because this is in the pocket for me. And I guess it just got stuck underneath a lot of the mainstream music that I was consuming, and Sonic Youth just never really made it. I must have heard one or two songs at the wrong time and just never came back to them. I like the idea of the multiple lead singers, having Moore and Gordon and Ronaldo on there. It's great 90s alt rock that wasn't grunge, which was just all over the air all the time, right? So, cool thing with Gordon, I think her singing still holds up, rock out. Scooter and Jinx totally reminded me of when, bands just jammed for a minute or two in concert and would let the lead singer go get a drink or take a piss or whatever, right? And so it had that real concert feel to me right in the middle of that album. And yeah, I wasn't a big Sonic Youth fan back in the 90s, but now I'm looking back and like Primus, Alice in Chains, I was all into that. It's strange to me that I didn't fall into this one too. REM, it's early Michael Stipe vocals, back in his college folkish era. South Central Rain is one of my favorite REM songs of all time, and here it is. Mike Mills I think is one of the greatest backing vocals in music history, and just plays really well with Michael. One of my favorite duos of all time, and it's on full display here on this album. Pretty Persuasion was the standout for me because of that. I can't remember it ever catching my eye before, but I don't remember ever listening to this entire album before either, so that might not. It just hit me in the right spot today. I am a little disappointed that Time After Time wasn't actually a Cyndi Lauper cover. But, you know, I think Time After Time by Cyndi Lauper came out at about the exact same time as this album. So that's understandable. It's not the 60s. They're not covering a song the second it comes out. Yeah. So overall, I enjoyed all three albums. If I had to rank them in order, I'd put Sonic Youth first because their sound's just hitting me in the right spot right now. Say a 4 out of 5. After that, Modern Lovers at a 3.5 for the novelty of their sound. If I listened to it for much longer, it'd probably shift down to a 3, which is where I'd put REM right now. But I don't want that to come off as a knock against them. It's a very solid album. It's just where it is in reference to these other two.
Yeah, thanks, Scott. How about you, Alan? What are your thoughts on the other three albums?
Yeah. All right. So I'm going to list these out in order of my favorite, I guess. And I'm going to start with the Sonic Youth, Goo. Like Scott mentioned, I feel kind of like I slept on these guys. I've never listened to them before. And I know they're highly regarded and often cited as being influential among the sort of like alt-rock movement. So I guess I owe them a debt of gratitude, if anything, because my love for music kind of formed in the 90s with alt-rock and grunge and everything. And so sonically, this album actually sounds pretty grungy. I like the way they play with the different guitar tunings and stuff. The way they make use of noise and feedback is really unique and adds a lot of texture, which is something I enjoy. So yeah, overall, it was just kind of a really interesting album to listen to. And of all the different singers, I think I liked when Kim Gordon was singing the most. I wouldn't say she's got a great voice, but there's just something really unique and cool about it. It's like she just doesn't give a shit. She's so cool. I don't know how to explain it. Another thing I kind of picked up on is just how tight they sound as a band. I guess by this point they had a few albums under their belt, so they had time to dial that in. But ultimately, I know we're not gonna go through like our full ratings or anything, but if we were gonna rate this for influence, I would say this rated pretty high personally for me, not only because of who this band in turn influenced, but also like I would love to know how their sound kind of evolved, because Goo is the 6th album. I want to know what they sounded like from albums 1 through 5 to see, like, because I think they got their start in like the 70s, right? So yeah, I think I'll probably do a deep dive on the Sonic Youth. My next favorite would be Reckoning by REM. My first thoughts were just that it just comes off as like a really fun and happy sounding album. I didn't really pay too much attention to the lyrics, so for all I know, I'm way off there and there's like actually some really dark imagery, but I don't think so. At any rate, I can definitely say this was a pretty pleasant album to listen to while I was working. I just kind of found myself in a better mood, kind of bopping along, and the songs are super catchy. I think the Wikipedia article that Darren linked to said that this album was classified as jangle pop, and while I've never heard of the classification jangle pop before, I can't help but agree with that. And Michael Stipe's voice, he's got a really great, really clear, crisp quality to his voice, which I have always appreciated about REM, and it's definitely present on this album, which I believe was their 2nd studio album. I should quickly touch on some of the recording process, because they did something interesting with binaural. I don't know how to pronounce that, binaural audio, and you can kind of hear it working its way through the music. So basically, if I understand correctly, they would set up multiple microphones in the studio, and they would all kind of sing in tandem, and that way the background vocals could be picked up on Michael's mic, and so it just kind of created this fullness, this texture to the sound, which is pretty interesting. I'm sure anyone in our audience who has, an understanding of music production is probably shaking their head at me right now, because I don't know how best to describe that. But at any rate, I thought that was a really interesting quality. And then lastly, we have the Modern Lovers. So when my brother was in high school, he was in this really shitty garage band, and they covered Roadrunner. And that was definitely the first time I had ever heard the song. And I hoped it would be the last time too, until Darren picked this album. And mercifully, I can tell you that the Modern Lovers do a much better job than my brother's band did. I don't really know how I feel about this one, to be honest. Lyrically, it's kind of out there. Just really weird lyrics, and that's okay, because it makes it interesting to listen to. What I really appreciate about this album, and Scott mentioned this as well, despite this being sort of like a punk or a proto-punk album, it's still pretty well done musically. Like, it's accessible. They're not intentionally shitty because that's punk rock, dude. Like, they actually are a pretty tight band. So I didn't expect that, based on just the description and the era that they came from alone. So that was a pleasant surprise for me. And while I didn't love this album, I didn't hate it either, but I'm not sure that I would necessarily listen to it again. So if we're talking numbers here, Goo by Sonic Youth, I'm going to give a 3.25. I like my quarter ratings in there. REM, I'm going to give a 3 overall. And I think the Modern Lovers, I'm going to give a 2.5.
Thanks, man. Interesting perspective on Roadrunner. Scott Coates over in Thailand. What do you think of these?
Yeah, I'm going to echo some of what everyone here has said. And I'll go like Alan just did, and that's in order of how I like them. Sonic Youth, I'm the exact same as you guys. I've known of the name of this band. I've heard of them. I think it was just that they got lost in the shuffle of so many monster sort of grunge, angsty hard rock bands at that time. They just, didn't bubble to the mainstream surface. And I couldn't name you a single song by them before this. But overall, I liked it. Like you mentioned, the two singers, I really liked the female singers. I'm kind of liking it the more I listen to it. And I suspect it's one of those that you've got to listen to it quite a few times. Because the first time I just sort of thought, this is kind of noisy. But I'm coming around to it. And Tunic, for me, reminded me of going to some parties in college where people acted depressed just because they seemed like they wanted to act depressed at that time. That was the cool thing. But I really did like the use of noise and feedback, as Alan said. And there's a real feel of, sticking it to the man and Mom and Pop, I Told You So, and kind of reminded me of sort of Iggy Pop and Velvet Underground and stuff like that. So I did quite appreciate and enjoy Sonic Youth. The one I like second best, I guess, would be REM Reckoning. I didn't realize that they had so many albums before Green. Green was the first album I got to know them from, and that was their 6th album. So holy. Overall, I like it. It's good background music. Sounds a lot like, those first 6 REM albums. I'd say the only thing about it is I've never liked the slow REM songs. They're kind of depressing. But otherwise, nice tunes. Don't Go Back to Rockville still stands up. Really good one. So Central Rain, solid. Yeah, I think it's a good effort overall. The Modern Lovers, for me, really threw me. I mean, it sounds very much like Britpop. I mean, Pablo Picasso, it's funny, but it's eerie. And then Hospital, like When You Get Out of the Hospital, and I Think I'm Going to Tell You I Love You. The whole time I listened to this album, and I admittedly don't listen super close to lyrics, but this sounded to me like an incel album, like an album of an abusive person, or an album that someone listens to before they go to stalk a woman or something. Like, I found it really kind of creepy and eerie and weird, and I don't think they're particularly musically good. And again, it was just, I imagine somebody alone in a basement before they're about to do something that they shouldn't do. So rating-wise, I'll give Sonic Youth a 3.5, and I'm going to go and now listen to some of their albums, because I think all three of us so far have said, why haven't we listened to them? REM, I'll give it a 2. I think it's a pretty solid effort, especially from someone that was very much an underground indie college band at that time. And the Modern Lovers, I got to just give it a 1.5. Over to you, Darren.
Yeah, I really like this, actually. It's kind of fun. And 3 albums, it's a lot, actually, to process in a month and listen to. And even though there's obviously a connection there, they're quite different albums. They really all are, and different artists. So, yeah. I won't go too deep because you really covered them all well. My feelings for especially the Modern Lovers are quite different from you guys, so I'll leave them to last. This really isn't any order, but Sonic Youth Goo. I remember Sonic Youth and a few of their songs, and they kind of bubbled up, and I liked them, but they were more of a playlist band with a few songs for me. I don't own any on vinyl, not through lack of trying, just priorities, I guess. But now I think I will. I like all of you. It was like I kind of rediscovered them, and and when I picked this album, I'm like, okay, like I really got into it. I thought it was cool, and like Mildred Pierce and Cool Thing and Tunic, like I thought all those songs are great, and they're just so unique and different. But it was fun. It was more fun than I thought, and I remember them being more kind of out there, spacey a little bit. But like really liked it. For them, honestly, I'm going to give that a 4 out of 5. And then for REM, again, that's another band, and you said it too, Scott. I struggled with them a little bit before, because I always found out they did a lot of slower stuff. Like I remember the 80s poppy stuff, and the Green album you said, like I remember all that as well. I didn't know their earlier stuff that well. So Central Rain, that was pretty popular. Right? That one's still on the radio. You'll hear it. But in general, again, I was pleasantly surprised. It was actually, like Alan said, a pretty happy, fun album. And, I never heard the term Django pop before. That's not the connection, by the way. But I can see what they mean there. And just such a, Michael Stipe's just got such an interesting voice. And that band is really known to be really one of the inventors of that college rock and university rock. They came out of Athens, Georgia, and were just kind of worked their way up. And that's why you never heard of them, because they were really the first ones that were just out there playing gigs, working the road, doing the university tour, and putting out albums, and nobody heard of them. It's like, I guess the Black Keys would be that now, the modern version of that. But I also really like that. I was pleasantly surprised at that. And I'm going to give that one a 4, because I just think that is a solid album as well. But the Modern Lovers, I don't know when it happened for me, but years ago I kind of ran across Jonathan Richman. I don't know if it was something about Mary triggered it, and I alluded to that in the previous story. But if you watch that movie, there's this quirky guy singing in a tree in the beginning, and he comes back at the end of the movie, and that's Jonathan Richman. And he kind of is known for these quirky songs, but he just grew on me. And the more and more I listened to that album, and they don't have that much content. I believe they only have like an album and a half material, maybe 2. They weren't really around long at all. And so anyway, but it grew on me and grew on me. And honestly, cross my heart, if I had to pick 25 albums to take somewhere, Modern Lovers would be on that list for me. It's that big of an album for me. Yeah, so awesome. I love that my taste in that band is so polar opposite of you guys. They're giving me the thumbs down on the video, which I know you can't see, but bastards. It's okay. Anyway, so on that, I'm giving that a 5, because I fucking love that album. It's so dynamite. It'll grow on you. Keep listening to it. Anyway, that's enough of that. So okay, we've spent 20 minutes now. We're going to cut it a little bit, but we got to get to the point of the whole show, the connection. So let's go quickly around, and we'll go one by one, and I won't reveal until I hear all of you. All right, we've wasted enough time. Let's get to it. Let's find out what we think each of these members think the connection between these 3 albums is. Scott Gregory, over to you.
So you know what else grows on you? Like mold and fungus. So I'll put that album in the same category as things I'll grow on me going forward. Similarities, oh my God, I don't know. So Talking Heads has a connection to Modern Lovers through Jerry Harrison on keyboards. Jesus and Mary Chain, you brought up in your intro, they have a minor connection to Sonic Youth. Thurston Moore appears on REM's Crush with Eyeliner.
There's a lot of
I'm really struggling here. I don't know. That's way in 95, right? REM and Sonic Youth were contemporaries. They both resisted the temptation to go grunge. If anything, REM moved away from grunge by becoming more rock as time goes on.
Yeah, that's a lot of
They all
explanation.
hated their record
need a
labels
guess.
and interference. I don't know. Like, it's not male pattern baldness.
There you go, yeah.
I checked too. Some of them still have hair. The closest thing I could find is outside of REM, and this is what blows it away, is that a huge chunk of the people that you had named all came up through the New York music scene, and that they, a big chunk of them were counterculture, that they not only existed outside the mainstream, but then they also existed outside of grunge or whatever was the most popular way of being against pop music at that time. But honestly, I just don't know. You got me on this one. I don't know.
Okay. All right. Alan, what do you think?
I think Scott was looking way too deep. My first thought when you announced each of these bands was that, maybe they all inspired Kurt Cobain or something. And then I realized maybe they were all inspired by someone. And I think the connection is Lou Reed and the Velvet Underground. I think all of these bands were heavily influenced by Lou Reed and the Velvet Underground, and that is the connection. And I think to give Scott a little bit of bonus points, I guess that's kind of what I think maybe you were alluding to when you were talking about the counterculture. Maybe I don't know. Anyway, that's my thought.
Yeah. All right. That's your guess. Scott Coates, what do you think?
Yeah,
my
I
friend?
struggled. This one was the first one that popped into my head, and I am no guitar expert, but for some reason, I thought these guitars sound the same. So I think there might be the same model of guitar used. That's a super stretch. I think maybe all of these songs were featured on Anthony Bourdain shows. Another one is, I think they were all influenced by Lou Reed and the Velvet Underground. Also Iggy Pop. They're all college radio hits from 70, 80, and 90, I think. And they all influenced the Smashing Pumpkins. So there's some threads I'm pulling at, perhaps digging a little too deep.
All right. No, that's good. That's good. Actually, that was really good. You all did really well. But the closest, the absolute closest is Alan. It was absolutely influenced by the Velvet Underground, and you were very on that. Scott, you got it as well, but you kind of weren't totally sure there. But yeah, I mean, it's funny. We've done this now. We're coming up on our, I think, 9th year here in the Sonic Collective, and our whole premise is based on reviewing albums that were influential. And we've never picked the Velvet Underground, and it's actually been something that's driven me crazy for a while, and I've been meaning to pick them. So I think we probably still have to pick an album. We should go back and do a proper review because they are that amazing. The Velvet Underground started in 1964, but really their first album came out in 66, I believe it was. That's so an amazing band, and as said, Lou Reed led that band. It was Lou Reed, Sterling Morrison, John Cale, and Mo Tucker were the original kind of classic lineup, we'll call it. They did change members. And Nico, if you know who Nico is, she's a German singer. She talks like this. And she was featured on the album. Apparently, her and Reed hated each other and did not get along, and they weren't around long. The band was mismanaged by Andy Warhol a little bit at times, and that was part of why they never really made it that famous. They weren't managed by Warhol that well, and their label really didn't know what to do with them and didn't understand the music, the classic, a bit ahead of their time. Brian Eno, who Scott Coates recently picked, made a very famous quote about them. He's like, the first Velvet Underground album only sold 10,000 copies, but everyone that bought it formed a band. And all the people you mentioned, when you mentioned Cobain highly credited Velvet Underground as well. And him and Stipe were friends. And, so it was a tough one because that's a very general, somebody influenced, but the Velvet Underground are really known to be that first band that started it all in that really alternative scene, let's call that. And really with the styling and the vocal, everybody was just trying to, and it's just pop music we're talking about, but when everybody's just trying to sing the same bubblegum music over and over, and then you get somebody like Lou Reed or comes out and stands or a Michael Stipe or a Kim Jordan or Jonathan Richman. And Jonathan Richman used to hang out and watch Velvet Underground. He harassed them until they let him play with his band and stuff. So he really got his start through the Velvet Underground as well, directly. He was basically at that time. Sorry. All right. Any closing thoughts on that, guys, before we take off? Maybe give a quick 2 cents on what you thought about that.
Yeah, that was fun. I figure like we can find a lot of connecting threads in picking these, you know. So it's tough to identify like a consistent thread that's worth mentioning, right? Because like Scott mentioned, it's not male pattern baldness or whatever. Like something as silly as that could connect them. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
I'm kicking
I
myself.
try not to be too mean.
I'm kicking myself because
Yeah.
I even read all the stuff about, getting the start with Velvet, like at the Velvet Underground shows and stuff like that. And that should have clicked at that point there and be like,
Right.
It didn't.
Yeah.
So I enjoyed
said
it, but
that.
I'm kicking myself.
You all basically had that. You said the New York counterculture. You're absolutely right. That's
Yeah,
exactly
and that's
what
why
it
I was like, I was just one freaking step away, one synapse, not firing. Son of a.
I think we did pretty good, but
Nice.
the other fun thing was listening to 3 albums I'd never listened to, and I kind of enjoyed listening to REM again. I hadn't listened to them in so long, and I think all of us now have tapped into Sonic Youth too, which is kind of neat.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I like that too. So yeah, that was fun. That was our first one. Now we got 3 more members doing it next. And Scott Coates, you're next. You want
Sure.
to?
Yeah.
Yeah,
My
any tidbits?
3 albums, and it will be posted online. You can read about them. Is Black Sabbath by Black Sabbath, The Happy Mondays by The Happy Mondays, and Permission to Land by The Darkness.
Wow.
Ooh.
my first guess was going to be all of these albums are
Self-titled.
eponymous. Yeah, but
Almost.
Yeah,
Almost.
no.
Anyway, I hope you all have fun with them.
Okay. Oh man. Yeah, those are
I
great
love The
albums.
Darkness.
Yeah. And I can't say the last time I listened to The Darkness. Maybe a song.
I have to get ready to hit those
Yeah.
high notes.
I'll tap into this. Lately, I've gone down a rabbit hole of watching Justin Hawkins, the lead singer's YouTube channel, Justin Hawkins Rides Again. And he has some really, really fun kind of reaction commentary ones. And one that floored me last week was he talks about Bryan Adams' Reckless album. And I mean, I know the hits, but he looks back on that album and it is an incredible album, whether you like Bryan Adams or not. There's 7 singles on that album. And I mean, Summer of 69 for me is kind of like Hotel California. I've heard it so many times, I don't like it. But goddamn, that album just sounds like a rock album. The guitar is clear. There's not over processing. And there's an artist like absolutely crushing it. So yeah, check that out too.
Yeah, that's very cool. Very cool. Awesome, guys. Well, this one's running a little bit, so why not cut it off? But that was super fun, and wow, like impressive that you all basically had it there. But Alan, I got to give you the win on that one for sure. But stay tuned next time. Scott Coates will be posting here, and we'll listen for the month, and join us back at the beginning of next month, November, and then we'll have this review up, and it'll be another good time. And then on with Alan and Scott G. All right, for now, I'm Darren Scott and the rest of the Sonic Collective, and we're signing off at thesonic.collective.com or all your favorite podcast platforms.
Thanks for listening and exploring with us. We'll be back real soon with another pick and critique of albums that matter here at the Sonic Collective.